I find Louis Armstrong to be just so inspirational, especially after reading his autobiography and other books about him, and just learning about his life in New Orleans. There's a book, My Life in New Orleans, that Satchmo wrote about his time growing up here, and just reading about it, learning about where he came from, was just really inspirational to me, because Louis Armstrong's one of those people who went from like a kid in the streets in New Orleans to being one of the top jazz musicians in the world, and he didn't lose friends along the way. He was just a really great person, and I'm so inspired by that he stayed humble. And I just love his generosity. His heart was as big as the smile that was across his face. So he's just one of those people in this world that you just can't learn too much about, you know? I have friends that have studied him for years and are still learning new things. He's just an amazing human being. And in my eyes, people should look at him as a role model. Well, I found out about the Louis Armstrong House Museum in New York. I was actually in New Orleans on Royal Street, and I had seen this painting of Louis Armstrong. And I'd gone by this gallery several times, and I told the gallery owner, I said, I really want that painting. He said, you know about this painting, right? This is an exact copy of what's hanging in Louis Armstrong's living room in New York. And I said, New York? What do you mean? There's a living room? Like, where can I go see this? That's how I heard about the Armstrong House Museum. The gallery owner ended up working a deal with me, and you see the painting right behind me. So I actually got it and got to bring it home. And it was in that transaction that I learned about the museum in New York and went to go check it out and was just truly blown away. His home is in New York, in Corona, Queens, completely preserved, and you can hear conversations of him in his home, and it's just a wonderful gem that everyone in New Orleans needs to go by and visit. So in all my research and readings about Louis Armstrong and learning about his life in New Orleans and finding out about the museum in New York, I really felt like we owed it to Louis for New Orleans to be connected to the preservation of his home, because we didn't save that here. The house he was born in was torn down to build the police station, and then the house that he grew up in was torn down to build City Hall. So here is a place that's preserved, that we can actually be involved in that preservation process. And so that's why I continue to visit the museum, continue to go to the fundraiser every year to raise money to help keep things going. And in that process, they actually asked me to be a trustee. So it's a huge honor to be involved in that capacity for Louis Armstrong. And I travel from New Orleans to Corona several times a year just to help out, have board meetings, and just, you know, be a part of someone who I think was one of the most amazing human beings on the planet, not just from New Orleans. And a home with Louis in the house, well, it's just a happier home. It's a wonderful world.